At the time we thought Taranaki, because it was such an outlier compared to the rest of the Kokako population, we thought it might be genetically distinct. So we caught it because there were only males left in Taranaki. They couldn't breed and they were just going to dwindle away. If we caught it and put it in captivity, we had the only chance of saving that genome, if you like. First we had to go in and identify the territories of the birds. And Kokako have a relatively small territory of per pair about 4 to 8 hectares. So after playing tapes in the forest and watching the birds, following them, we'd identified whereabouts the territory was and roughly where the centre was, where the birds mostly sung. Near that central point in the territory, we came in and cut a small gap in the forest canopy that we could then rig a mist net site. So you imagine the Kokako are mostly active in the canopy of the trees, so sometimes 20, 25 metres above the ground. We had to put our mist nets into that area. We know that Kokako are very responsive to playback song, particularly their own song or that of a neighbour. So we made recordings. At that time we used a recording system called mini disc, which we could very rapidly record a bird and play it back to itself. So we kind of play a game of tennis. We've got, you imagine the mist net in the middle, we've got a speaker either side, and we're playing song from one side to get the bird interested and onto that side of the net, then playing song from the other side so that the bird will try and go to that speaker and hopefully our net is right in the middle.
Oh, you beauty.
By that stage we'd all had quite a bit of experience catching birds, so that side of it really went to plan. Yeah, the bird did what it was meant to and flew from speaker to speaker and got tangled up and caught. So from that perspective it went like clockwork. Kokako are quite unique in that they don't appear very stressed out. So a Kokako in the hand will often feed from you.
I reckon that is amazing. They do that straight from...
God, you've got a sharp beak there. So when we caught the bird, we first feed it with banana and then a little saucer full of jam and water, a sweet like nectarish mix. That calms the bird, and then we usually band the bird, so it gets a metal band and some plastic bands for identification. We take the bird's weight and measurements and we take a blood sample that we can use for the DNA genetic work, and it can also be used for screening of blood parasites and for sexing the bird. The bird then went to the marae at Uranui, where it was blessed by Ngāti Tama elders and given the name Tamanui.
One of the doc staff referred to it as having generous proportions, so Tamanui, big boy, was the name, but there's also a saying in Māoridom that when they refer to the iwi as Ngāti Tama Nui tonu. And the aspirations for the iwi who were going through the settlement at the time were the same aspirations that we had for the bird, was to build a bigger and brighter future for Ngāti Tama, and was a sign of new beginnings.
Mount Bruce at that stage was the only institution that had experience with Kokako in captivity. That was primarily because we were preparing them in case we ever found South Island Kokako. So they'd kept birds and they'd worked out the conditions they needed to breed in captivity and been reasonably successful at that. They built a large forest aviary, a tall aviary with lots of native trees inside it that the birds seemed to adapt readily to. And we thought they'd be the place best suited to try and bring Tamanui together with a new female mate in captivity. Breeding in captivity proved to be very slow, and so it was decided that we'd move all the birds with a variety of potential mates onto Tiritiri Matangi Island and allow them to make their own pair choices and see if that worked a bit better.
We have Kokako and tiri who have to be monitored. Ours is what they call a managed population. Every bird on the island has to be correctly identified, which means we have to find all the nests and band all our chicks with a certain combination of bands.
And the reason for that is that we need to know exactly who is who. We need to know which chicks have which parents, and so that we know the genetic ancestry of all the chicks that are hatched on the island.
Tiri probably can't have a self-sustaining population. The island's not big enough. This is why we have to do what we do in the way of almost manipulating the birds, like trying to bring in fresh stock from time to time and trying to make that genetic base as wide as possible.
On the island we have Kokako from Mapra, we have Kokako from Waipapa, and we have birds of Taranaki descent.
We think the birds have a lot of personality. They do vary. We've got one Taranaki bird here called Potama. He's a hunkingly good-looking lad, but he doesn't know how to behave with a lady Kokako. And we've had the situation here where we had too many females at one stage, and those girls were really keen to meet Potama. They met him and said, we're desperate, but not quite that desperate. So Potama just wanders around the island, hey, willy-nilly. But then we've got Paraninihi, who is another Taranaki bird, and he's an absolute honey. He's a delightful bird. His current partner, Koha, at one stage ended up with a badly injured leg, and she couldn't look after herself properly. Paraninihi was wonderful. He actually was feeding her, he was grooming her, and basically looking after her and keeping her morale up until her leg recovered, and she was able to go back to behaving quite independently. Tarai and Chatters are another interesting couple. Tarai is a female Taranaki Kokako, and she definitely wears the pants in the relationship. Chatters got his name because when he was originally courting Tarai, she was quite moody at times, and he'd go up to her with a little food offering, and if she wasn't in the right mood, instead of saying thank you very much, that's lovely, she'd actually have a nip at him instead, and he'd go dancing back along the branch. And he was very quiet when he was with her. And when he was away from her, he'd be chattering away. That's hence the name Chatters. Chatterbox, it was like he was letting off steam. They've now got a very good relationship, but a couple of years ago, she actually did the dirty on him and disappeared, and we thought maybe something had happened to her because he was wailing, moaning around the area, couldn't find her. And it turned out that she'd gone off with another bird for the season, but she came back at the end of the season, and Chatters was quite interesting when she arrived back. She was all, very humble and pleased to be back here, and she got on the same branch as him, and he actually went and turned his head away from her. He wasn't having a bar of it. It took them quite a while to get that sorted out. But last season they were back on form again and produced 2 lovely chicks again. So there's quite a bit of difference with these birds.
Kokako can only cover 100 to 200 metres between large trees. They're not a strong flyer. They can't fly uphill. They can only keep a level flight for 100 metres at most, and then they just slowly go towards the ground. So they mostly get around by running up trees in a series of jumps like a squirrel and gliding down to the next tree. So yeah, Tiri was very well isolated for them.
They run around on the branches, and they run around on the ground, and they hop through the trees, and they move around like that, and they're quite stealthy in their movements. They're often referred to as the grey ghost because they can slip away unnoticed, and they creep around, and they're often hard to find.
The advantage to having the Taranaki Kokako and Tiri is that we will hopefully be able to catch most of them to send them back down to Taranaki. If you look at the mainland forests in New Zealand, they're very high canopy, and it's very, very hard to catch Kokako in these circumstances. Here on Tiri, because we know our birds so well, and I mean we know them quite intimately, each of our pairs often behave slightly differently, so we actually know them very well. We know what trees they go and singing in the mornings and things like this, so it should make it easier when we want to catch these birds, that we can go in and say, okay, if we put a net through here, we should be able to catch this pair of birds. That's the main advantage to Tiri, that these birds can be retrieved and then sent off.
When we captured Tamanui, it was from the rohe of Ngāti Tama, and we made them a promise that we would return the progeny of that bird as soon as a site became available in Taranaki that was suitable. So we've been, ever since the time we caught Tamanui, we've been working to encourage the people of Taranaki, the Department of Conservation, Regional Council and iwi to come up with a suitable site.
The plan is to take the birds with Taranaki descent back down to the Taranaki area, and they are preparing at the moment an area called Parininihi, which also happens to be the name of one of our Taranaki Kokako. This area is right on the coast.
Well, the actual habitat they're going back to looks good. We went down and had a look, and we feel our birds will settle down there very nicely. They're back by the coast. Our birds are used to being by the coast. They're used to sort of some of this more scrubby vegetation. The main issue at the moment, obviously, is getting this area, Parininihi, cleared of predators, or getting them down to a low enough number that the birds can safely breed.
My role is to prepare the site to make it ready for the return of the Kokako. I'm out there whenever I can, really, setting up an intensive pest control program, which includes setting up a track network and putting in bait stations, which will eventually use different types of poisons to eradicate vermin. The site that we're preparing is about 2,000 hectares, and it's quite rugged in places, and the biggest threat for the Kokako would be the amount of rats that are in the area and the possums. Therefore, it's an intensive and a laborious job to get rid of them.
In the winter time, birds are probably quite safe. It's when the pairs start nesting and that female is on that nest and she's very vulnerable, and she'll often try and defend that nest if a predator comes up rather than disappearing. She'll sort of stand her ground and then she'll get eaten, as will the chicks. This is why in mainland forests there's an awful lot of male-male pairs out there, because often the females have been predated. So that's one of the, I think, the main issues for there, getting these predator numbers down and keeping them down. On Tiri, at the moment, we've had our most successful breeding season ever. We actually fledged 11 Kokako chicks in the 2013-2014 season. This now brings our population of Kokako on Tiri up to probably around about 39 birds, which is a huge number of birds for the island, probably more than the island needs at the moment. But of that, we've probably got at least 22 of those birds are carrying Taranaki genes. So this is wonderful. So all we need now is for Parininihi to get on stream, and we'll be able to then send some of those birds down to Parininihi.
I've worked with Kokako for so many years now. I do think they're a really amazing bird. I mean, it's a bird that's kind of halfway towards flightlessness, if you like. Their wings are very small, and seeing them sort of jumping and doing short glides in the forest is, they're quite unique in that way with such a reduced wing. But the call is the thing that will stick with most of us as a lasting memory of the bird.
I think it's a dream for most of us here to be able to hear the call of the Kokako.
Being the kaitiaki of these lands, I think it's important for Ngāti Tama to see the return of the Kokako. It's our job to take care of our whenua. That includes restoring the taongas that we have lost.
It's important because we're reclaiming our history, and the Kokako is a part of that history.
you.